I cannot believe this. Carlos Mendoza just gave the most ridiculous answer to a question in last night's postgame, in addition to his daily phrases after another devastating loss, and it was so bad that it has fans laughing, and that's exactly what we're going to go over, only here on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to go over this comment that was so bad that it was comedical, but first we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.8% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, just a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. And of course, the New York Mets dropped another baseball game last night. They lost their series at home to the Atlanta Braves after a dominating victory back on Tuesday night. Atlanta came back. They won the next two games. They came back in this one yet again. The Mets blew another lead. 13 of the last 15 games have been dropped. We have been continuing to just play really, really pathetic baseball since June 13th. The Mets are 14 games under the 500 mark since that day. Absolutely brutal. Here's the scoring. It all started with Francisco Lindor, a shot to dead center field to give the Mets a 1-0 lead in the bottom of the third. But in the top of the fourth, Ozzie Albies, who had a great night last night, tied it up with a shot to center field of his own. He then had an RBI base hit in the sixth to give Atlanta the lead. But Kodai Senga did not get the loss last night. The Mets came back a little bit in the bottom of the sixth. Brandon Nimmo with a sacked fly and Pete Alonso with his 99th RBI here in 2025 gave the Mets a 3-2 lead. And then it was business as usual, right? You hand it off. Tyler Rogers, he's in the game. He pitches the seventh and doesn't give up any runs, although he did come in for Senga because Senga didn't go 6 innings. We'll get to that in just a second. He pitched the seventh, though, cleanly after giving up that run in the sixth that gets charged to Senga. And then we turn it over to Ryan Helsley, and there goes everything. Our picture-perfect plan that's never supposed to fail of Rogers, Helsley, and Diaz did indeed fail. Helsley blows another game for the Mets, and the Braves take a 4-3 victory. We'll go back to the pitching. Kodai Senga, he looked good last night. We'll hear what the skip had to say, as he had praise for him. He said that Senga pitched well, and he did, but he only went 5 2/3 innings, meaning it is now 56 consecutive games in which no two starting pitchers have gone 6 innings or more, meaning nobody not named David Peterson has pitched 6 or more innings since June 7th. It is August 14th. This is insanity. This is ridiculous. Senga did pitch well, but he got pulled after 93 pitches. Rogers, of course, came in the game to get that last out, and of course, you saw that Albies base hit gave the Braves a 2-1 lead, but Senga does not get the loss, neither does Rogers, because the Mets came back in the sixth. But of course, it all went to shambles when Helsley blew the game. Clean inning for Edwin Diaz. He finally pitched, but they have just been not winning baseball games, so Edwin Diaz has just not been pitching, which is another reason why I personally am on the fire Carlos Mendoza train. Let's take a look at the box score, and this is important that you look at the top of the order from the Mets. 3 hits from Francisco Lindor, 1 from Juan Soto, 1 from Brandon Nimmo, 1 from Pete Alonso. The bottom of the order went a combined 0 for 16 with 5 Ks. So this is where the comedic thing comes in. One of the questions that he was asked, it was the last question that the skip Carlos Mendoza was asked. It was, what did you see from the bottom half of the lineup in particular? I think spots 5 through 9, and this does include the pinch hitter in Starling Marte, when a combined 0 for 16 tonight. Yes, that is true, and they had 5 strikeouts in total. What was the response of the manager? Yeah, I mean, it's about a game, you know. But Beatty walked. Oh, yay! Woohoo! Brett Beatty walked. Are you kidding me? That's a Little League thing to say. That's, oh, little Johnny got a walk. Congratulations. Who cares? The bottom of the order went 0 for 16. You have lost 13 of your last 15 games, and you're concerned that a guy got on via a walk? Are you serious? How are you an MLB manager? Yeah, I think you got to give other credit, you know? Because the bottom of our lineup, they didn't contribute, you know, so it's not going to happen every night, obviously, and tonight was one of those. But yeah, I wouldn't put too much into that. Are you serious? I mean, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely insanity. You have lost another game, 13 of your last 15 games. You're only 7 games above 500. You're only half a game up in the wild card when you were supposed to win the World Series this year. What is this guy saying? He always gives everyone compliments. Everyone, the other team, our team, who knows, who cares? Everyone's great. Nobody's bad at baseball. Nobody can do anything wrong. Are you kidding me? This guy is terrible. He can't talk to the media. He doesn't know how to manage, and we'll get into all of that. But I guess let's just hear the rest of this garbage. I mean, I'm so done with this guy. It is ridiculous. Next question that he was asked: when you decided to make the switch to take out Senga, this goes back to that thing that we were talking about earlier when Rogers came in. Was it in part because of what Albies had done to him previously? Of course, with that home run. Mendy said, at that moment, 93 pitches, I think I had a pretty good arm ready to go there too. Just couldn't get that last one there. But I thought Senga overall was really good. Now, I get it. I personally didn't really mind either way. I agree that Tyler Rogers is a good arm, even though he's been a little bit shaky because his whip is up by a ton in a Met uniform this year. However, he has been solid overall. His ERA is still sub 1.3 in a Met uniform, so you can't really harp on him too much. He's been good in a Met uniform. He's somebody that you can rely on. The Mets wanted to go to him to get that out. Someone with a funky arm slot, someone that doesn't throw hard. Mendy thought he can get that out and keep it 2-1. Or rather, keep it 1-1, I should say, in that point, in that moment. And he ended up taking out Senga. Oh, well, I was fine if he kept in Senga. I was also fine if he took out Rogers. Of course, he did take out Senga, so now it's another game where not two starting pitchers go 6 innings, or rather, anyone not named David Peterson cannot reach the 7th inning. But it's all right. It is what it is. I personally couldn't harp on him too much for it. After this, he talked about what made Bryce Elder, the opposing pitcher, look so good. And now we'll turn it over to the fourth question. How concerned are you about your team? Because, like I was saying earlier, you only half the game up on the Reds in the wild card, and you had a chance to gain a game against the Phillies. The Phillies lost again last night, because they lost. You could have gained a game. How concerned are you about this team? Well, he responded, obviously we're not playing well, but there's too much talent. We're going through a very tough time right now, but there's a lot of good players there, and we just got to get through this. We can't be looking at the standings. We haven't played well, but we're still pretty much right in the thick of things, so we just gotta find a way. He then talked about what made Senga so good, and I mean, it's the same thing every night. It's the same scripted responses. We'll go to the 6th question he was asked last night. I think you've lost 13 of the last 15. How have you seen any common threads? Is there anything that you've noticed that maybe is lacking within the team? I wouldn't say lacking. We just haven't been able to put everything together. Whenever we're getting the offense, we're not getting starting pitching. Today we got starting pitching. We got some timely hitting, even though we didn't create much traffic. No, you didn't. You only had 7 hits, or 6 hits rather. But then we couldn't close it out. So when you're going through stretches like this, that's because you can't start pointing fingers here. Why? Why can't you point a finger? Nobody in the starting rotation besides David Peterson can last 6 innings. The bullpen is starting to implode. Ryan Helsley looks terrible right now. Why can't you blame the pitching coach? Why can't you blame the hitting coaches? Why can't you blame anyone? Why does everyone have to be perfect? I don't understand it from Carlos Mendoza. I think it's just overall we haven't been able to put it together consistently. Then he talked about how good Francisco Lindor has been of late. And again, these are just because of the questions that he was asked. He doesn't just go off on tangents. He talked about how good Lindor has been. 9th question, how tough has it been with the leads that you guys have been giving up lately? They're too good of players. He says this every single night. Part of our strength as a team is our bullpen, and sooner rather than later, those guys will turn it around. Well, I think it's a little too late right now, Carlos. You're going to miss the playoffs. You're going to finish under 500. How about you put a little pressure on these guys? Tell them they got to step it up now, not later. Later is too late because, like I said, you're talking about Ryan Helsley, you're talking about Edwin Diaz, you're talking about Tyler Rogers and Brooks Raley and Gregory Soto. We just haven't been able to put it together. But again, the talent's there and we will figure it out. It's the same spiel every single night. I'm done. I am so done. Here is Carlos Mendoza as a manager. This is something that I actually found last night and I thought was very, very interesting. you can look at the tendencies of a manager, and I want to compare him to Pat Murphy. Pat Murphy, of course, is the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, and the Brewers are absolutely incredible right now. They're on a 12-game winning streak. They are 76-44, 32 games above 500 with a .633 winning percentage. They've lost 4 total games since the 4th of July, which is incredible. Funny enough, 3 of them were the Marlins, but 4 losses since the 4th of July. It's August 15th. It's not even the 14th. Like I said earlier, it's the 15th of August, and you've only lost 4 games since the 4th of July. I mean, they've been incredible. So let's compare how Carlos Mendoza does compared to Murphy. So what I want to look at is rate plus. I've talked about OPS plus a handful of times, a lot of times, ERA plus even a few times, and very simply, if you are a 100 rating on OPS plus, ERA plus, anything with a plus, that means you are league average. Anything above means you're above league average. Anything below means you are below league average. Stealing second base, of course, Mendoza and the Mets are above average there, but that isn't even a Carlos Mendoza thing. They're stealing a lot of bases solely because of Antoine Richardson. Another 2 stolen bases last night. That is now the most ever in a season that you have consecutively stole bases without getting thrown out. 37 consecutive times now the Mets have stole a base without getting thrown out. Great job from Antoine Richardson. This really isn't anything from Carlos Mendoza. He is way, way, way below average this year in stealing third. Extraordinarily below average, I might add. Sack bunts, he's well below average. Intentional walks, he's well below average. And substitutions, pitchers per game, he is exactly average. Pinch runners per game, he's actually above average. That makes sense. He's done a lot of those. A lot of Luis Angel Acuna when he was up in the big leagues to sub in for a guy. That way you have that extra base runner. And slightly below pinch hitters per game in terms of rate. Let's turn it over to Pat Murphy, who is extremely successful this year. Well above 100 in terms of stealing second. In fact, that rate is even more than the Mets by 41 on this scale. As for stealing third, it is ridiculously higher, over 100 full points higher. Murphy and the Brewers stealing third. They actually go and do some sack bunts. They sacrifice. In fact, they sacrifice at a full percent better than the New York Mets. As for intentional walks, they're also above average. They're also above average in pinch runners per game, pinch hitters per game, and pitchers per game. Pat Murphy does more as a manager. He actually does things in the dugout compared to Carlos Mendoza. And you might say, oh, well, go ahead and look at the record. You know, you had Pat Murphy who went 93-69 last year with the Brewers, 76-44. But in 2015, he went 42-54 with the Padres, got fired, and then wasn't a manager for 9 more years. Okay, I get it that you're saying that, and you might say, oh, well, look at the Brewers and the Mets. The Mets literally eliminated the Brewers last year in the postseason. All very true, don't get me wrong, but Mendoza does not do enough as a manager. He doesn't ever, and I mean ever, say anything negative about a player or about a coach. That's something that you need to do as a manager, and right now, the season is literally imploding on him. The New York Mets were supposed to win the World Series this year with an immensely talented roster, and although Carlos is going to tell you every single night, yeah, these guys are really talented, they're not winning ball games. They're not even going to make the postseason. Pat Murphy is a great manager. That is why I always talk about how good the Milwaukee Brewers are. Mendoza is just not a good manager in terms of what he does on the field, and he's even worse when it comes to his press conferences. Again, look at this. But Beatty walked. So go down there in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Personally, I hated the hiring originally of Carlos Mendoza, but it turned around when the Mets turned around last year in 2024. Jorge Lopez threw his glove into the stands. You had that whole incident, but Francisco Lindor, he called a players-only meeting, and then things started to heat up immensely for Mendoza. I hopped on the Mendoza train. I stayed on it for a long time here in 2025, but I officially hopped off on last Tuesday. I'm done. Fire Carlos Mendoza. He says the same things every single night. Let's go back to it. I forgot about this. I have my list. I didn't even go over my list. We have to keep going and move on. The coaches are looking at film because he's Robert Saleh, if anyone is a Jet fan. It's on me. We have talent. I believe in this group. He never knocks players, never knocks coaches. He is not a good manager. So again, go down there in the comments and let me know if you agree or disagree. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this video. Mets are opening up a 3-game set against the Seattle Mariners. Last game actually in Williamsport for the Lily Classic, which will be really, really fun, but they'll probably lose. So hopefully I'm pleasantly surprised and they maybe win a ball game. But again, unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this one. Thank you so much always for watching, and let's go Mets.